Hi everybody, my name is Jim. I'm the owner of Sprague Woodturning and welcome to my channel. So last week I said that I would cover a shell inlay and my alternative to abalone, and this is it here. So this is mussel shells. Now if you're not real familiar with mussel shells, they typically come with a black outer casing on them. So I'm originally from the east coast of Canada, and when I started doing these inlays 20 years ago, we just happened to be walking the beaches and I was looking for, something that was unique to the Maritimes to inlay in these bowls. And I seen this and I said, you get your mother of pearl on the inside and then your nice blue on the outside. That'll look nice in an inlay. So I started doing them, and today it's still a very, very popular thing. So we're gonna inlay these, we're gonna crush them up into kind of good sized chunks. I find they look better. I've got a couple of ways of doing it, and I'll show you the other way later on a different video. So yeah, that's it. We're going to smash these up, inlay them in the rim, but at first we have to trim this bowl up, sand it, and I want to cut the groove in the rim and then get a coat of finish on it, because I don't want any glue. If I do happen to get a mishap with the glue, I don't want it spilling over the rim and staining in the end grain. So that's this week's video. Hopefully you enjoy it, hopefully you stick around, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. All right, let's get to the lathe. Okay, so if you're new to my channel, I always say this is the best part, and that's the first coat of finish going on the bowl. And again, this is what I like to use. General Finishes wood bowl finish. It used to be called salad bowl finish, now they call it wood bowl finish. And it's food safe, it is meant to be used, and it's a very durable finish. So the first coat I put on really heavy. I let it soak in, and then if there's any excess, I wipe it off, and then it will go into my drying room, and I'll leave it in there for about 4 hours, and then we'll put the inlay in it. But you can tell it just really brings the wood alive, seals it, protects it, and the big thing is with it, this will typically get 3 coats. It will keep food from migrating into the bowl, because this is, going to be a salad bowl. So, it's important to keep the wood so that food doesn't migrate into it. And if your bowl is sealed up, you can wash it properly in a sink, and you'll probably have no cracking. And you can't say that for other finishes like mineral oil and beeswax. They're maintenance finishes where you have to use them all the time. We have to use your finish all the time. And if you don't do it, there's a chance that you can, your bowl's going to split. But with this stuff, you don't have to worry about it. Now the other thing too is I'm going to put it inside the groove. That will help seal up the pores of the wood, because when I use the thin CA glue, it can migrate through the bowl and then stain the inside and the outside of the bowl. There's still a possibility that it will do that even with this finish, but usually if you put a coat of finish on it, it's good. Put some in the groove of the bowl. Like I said, don't be too concerned if you get too much in there. We're going to wipe it off anyway. So that will seal the pores in the wood, and hopefully that will limit how much glue wicks through the end grain on the inside and the outside of the bowl. Okay, so let's talk about prepping the shells for the inlay. So typically, when you find these shells on the beach, they might be encrusted with, I don't even know what that white stuff is. Any of you people that are into that kind of thing, let me know. But anyway, you'll find it all over the shells. These, of course, were beach washed, and the majority of this black outer skin has been removed. But ways you can get rid of it is it's just a brush and a drill. There, that got rid of a lot of it. I will take them over to my belt sander and just kind of grind this all off. That's the other thing that I do. Same thing there. That's a little bit of it again. You can see there in the light. So anyway, if you want to, you can leave that on there. It's up to you. I find that it just looks better. All I'm going for is blue and the mother of pearl on the inside of the shell. So the other thing that I do, side, now this is a piece of 4-inch plastic conduit. This is a steel plate. I think that's a Geological Hammer or something like that, for rocks anyway. And you don't need something, I can just use a normal hammer, but it'll give me the clearance. And what I do is I put these shells down inside of here. When you smash them with the hammer, they're going to want to fly everywhere. So if you've got something to contain them on the steel plate, that's great. Then that gets transferred on, and it goes through a sieve onto this pad over here. And inside this container is all of my fine mussel shell material. And I'll do an inlay on that as well. I just find that when you separate the really small bits from the big bits, the inlay looks cleaner, and that's why I do it. So let's do a few. So of course, hearing protection, this mother of pearl, you know, can be quite bad too, so you should be using some sort of a respirator as well. There, I'll usually do 2 or 3 and then get rid of it. But that's about the size of the, we don't really want anything much bigger than that. The odd piece in there is not so bad. So anyway, take this, just dump it onto the sieve. Clean it all up like this. And this is a container that I already have with a bunch of shells in it now. And then put it in there. There, I think that's the equivalent of probably 4 or 5 shells. So anyway, that will get dumped into my smaller container, and then this folds up. It gets dumped into this. Anyway, as far as all of my shell inlays are concerned, this is pretty much the way I do it. So okay, it's finally time to inlay the mussel shells. So all I do is just simply put them around the rim. Now the one thing that you don't want to do is have these shells, or any shell, if that's for that matter, above the surface of the wood. It will take an awful lot of sandpaper to cut it back, especially when it's combined with the thin CA glue. And you will use a lot of sandpaper. There, so do that. I just take a little screwdriver, tap on the side of the bowl. I find that's all that it needs. And then what I'll do is I'll take big ones out of there like that. Like I said, try and make sure that it's at the surface or just below. You know, pieces that just look maybe a little out of place. Try and get rid of them. And you can always come back to these afterwards and fill in any bare spots. And this is actually the only time that you can get away with using medium CA glue. Usually I need the water thin stuff. That tends to work best for the inlays that I do, because I want it to penetrate through either the soapstone or the alabaster or any other material that I'm using. But this is very coarse material, and medium will actually wick through this. I do find that when you use the medium, you will probably have more voids afterwards. And after I put the glue in, I don't hit this with the accelerator at all. I just let this cure naturally overnight. And the reason for that is I don't want any bubbles incorporated into it. And sometimes the accelerator can cause foaming within the glue itself, and then you've got these little bubbles trapped. So yeah, I'll just go around, fill this up with smaller bits of shell, and we'll hit it with the glue. Okay, so I've got you in here really close. Hopefully it's not too close. So the bench is, for the most part, relatively level. So I'll just keep spinning this bowl as I'm filling it with the glue. Again, when I put this finish on, I'm just doing a little bit of preventative maintenance. If some glue happens to get down in the bowl, I just don't want it to stain the end grain. So that's why I do that coat of finish. Again, I don't know if you can see those vapors coming off or not, but it's best to use this in a well-ventilated area. So I'll just go around this bowl and fill it up pretty much to the surface. I do find that it actually shrinks a little bit when it dries, which I think is very common with a lot of glues. And this will sit overnight. It will not get any accelerator. I don't want the possibility of getting any bubbles in this. And the reason for that is because between the shells, it's more or less going to be clear, so you're going to be able to see. And it's just best if it's not. It's best that you don't use the accelerator causing those bubbles. Anyway, there it is. Okay, so it's the next day. The adhesive has cured. And yeah, there's a few of them. They're sticking up above the surface a little bit. That's no big deal. As long as the bulk of them is not, it should be easy to sand back. Okay, so we're getting ready to sand this off. This is what I use. This is a 6-inch random orbital sander with PSA, I think it's PSA back discs on there. This is 60 grit. So what I'll do with the lathe off, I'll go around, I'll knock off all the high spots on the inlay, and then I'll turn the lathe on and sand it with this with the lathe running. And I do want to kind of expose or polish some of these. So you definitely want to cut them back a little bit. And anyway, once I get that done, we'll go back over to the inlay table and we'll clean up any voids that are left. Okay, I've turned this light off. Hopefully it's not so bright that it's blinding you here. So that's sanded back now. And I've cut back some of these shells. I've tried to use a gouge on these and forget it. All you're going to end up doing is pulling the shells out and taking the edge off your gouge. So that's why I said try and keep it below the surface of the wood so that it's not, because you know, if you've got this built up over this, you would easily probably use 6 pieces of sandpaper trying to sand this back flush, maybe even more than that. So it's always best to leave it a little below and then fill it up and sand it until you get a flat surface. Okay, so we don't need great big pieces to fill in here. So I think this is actually like a pencil pen holder, but it has bigger holes in the screening than the other sieve that I use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump these into there, and some more finer material will fall out, and that's what I'll use to fill in. And you know, if you wanted to at this stage, you could just put the thin CA glue on it and fill it in as it is. But CA glue is expensive, so it's best to fill in whatever you can with the material, because the material is probably always going to be cheaper than the CA glue. So I just keep doing that, and there's probably more than enough there now. So I just go around, fill in any areas, any low areas, and I'll take my finger and just kind of brush it off once I get this all on here. And yesterday, I didn't show you before I started doing this, but remember we put a coat finish on this, and that was to protect the wood from staining from the CA glue. And I noticed this morning that there's actually a run right here, and it's right on the end grain. So, you know, you can sand that out, but you know, you're gonna have to do a fair bit of sanding to do so. So that's why the finish goes on first. Okay, and I just go around, brush off any excess. And it's important to wear a mask, a good mask, when sanding this mother of pearl and shell material. It's not good for your lungs. So you'll sometimes maybe even hear my self-powered respirator running when I'm turning. And you know, my exposure to this is going to be probably more than most, so it's important that I protect my lungs. And that's why I like to have the front door and the back door open on my shop as well. It allows for airflow through the shop, not just stagnant air like it is during winter time. We got to have her all closed up. So there, I'll just go over to a flatter table or to a more level table, do the glue again, let it sit for about a half hour, hit it with some accelerator. I can do that now because it's not going to probably foam. And then take it back to the lathe, sand it back again, and so on until you've got all this stuff filled in. It could take you 3, 4, 5 times. Highly unlikely you'll get it in 2. Anyway, I'll bring you in for the very last one, and then we'll get second coat finish on. Okay, so I've filled this actually 3 times, and I've sanded it back to 180 just to make sure that there's going to be any big voids that I would see them. So literally there's no place for any more shells, so I'm just going to do another coat of the thin Star Bond stuff. There'll be a link in the description below, and then of course the accelerator. So what I'll do when I go back on the lathe now with this, I'll probably start at 120 with my 3.5 inch dimple discs that go on my drill. Sand it back to 320, and then take care of any sanding inside the bowl. There is a run of glue on the outside of this one bowl here. And anyway, we'll sand that up, 4-0 steel wool it, and get the second coat of finish on it. Okay, so this is the second coat of the wood bowl finish by General Finishes. Now, of course, the more coats you put on here, the more careful you have to be about getting runs and sags. And like I said before, it usually typically takes 3 coats to do. So just put it on sparingly, because there's nothing worse than noticing afterwards that you have a run or a sag in your finish. And typically when I load up the rag, I'll start where there's not finish and then work my way down to it. So it's getting a little later in the day here, so this will I'll probably throw this in my clean room overnight, put the last coat on tomorrow. As long as the coat of finish goes on first thing in the morning, there should be no reason why I can't finish the foot at the end of the day. Okay, so we've got 3 coats of finish on here now. I'm getting ready to part this off of the lace block that's here. And again, I'll just use the 3/16 parting tool. So yeah, this is the only time that I really get nervous, but I'll leave about an inch, inch and a half in here, and then I'll just use the saw and cut the rest off. There you go. Let's put this on the vacuum chuck, finish the bottom. Thought I'd cover this. So I keep getting asked a lot what type of pen I'm using the sign with, and it's a Pilot V5 High Tech Point 0.5. There, we'll get a coat of finish on this and finish this video up. Okay, so that's it for the video. Bring in for one more look here. And again, I get a lot of comments that it looks like marble a lot of times. And again, 3 coats of wood bowl finish, not solid bowl finish. They've changed the name on it from General Finishes. And I still got one more coat to do on the bottom. But that's it. This isn't so much a save this week. This is actually a very much an enhancement. And anyway, wherever you're from, I'm sure you can find shells somewheres. Give them a try. So yeah, if you like what you've seen here today, please consider subscribing. Every time you give a thumbs up certainly helps out my channel as well. And I'm not sure what we're going to do next week, but it'll be another inlay. So come on back for that. So until then, take care, stay safe. We'll see you next week.